Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of Quant Foundry. Today we're going to take a look at some common data visualization pitfalls and how to avoid them, as well as go over some data visualization best practices. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open up Tableau Public. Now, as you can see, I've got some data prepped to be ingested into Tableau Public. If you'd like to follow along, please click on the link in the description. It will take you to a Google Drive where you can download this data to follow along. So, before ingesting, I'm just going to do a quick spot check and look at the fields that are being ingested into Tableau Public. We've got month here is the first one that pops out. This is a time series type data type. This is being read by Tableau as a string instead of a date time. That's something we're going to have to change once we ingest it. Region is being read as a string. More or less, that can be fine, but we're going to want to change this over to a geo type as well. State looks like it's a geo. Sales manager is a string. Account executive is also a string. Cold email sent is being pulled in as an integer. Opens. Okay, everything else looks pretty good. Should be good to go. Just to give you a little bit of context around this data set, this is basically an outbound sales team whose primary objective is to reach out and generate cold leads that can convert into paying customers for account executives. So this is primarily sales activity and output metrics for an outbound SDR team. So that being said, let's go ahead and ingest this data. So let's go ahead and start out with probably the most common data visualization issue I encounter. So I'm going to go ahead and build a pie chart. Pie charts are terrible. Let's go ahead and take a look and convert this over into a pie chart. Okay, let's size this up a little bit. I'm going to click on the sizing shelf to make this larger. Oop, that's too big. I'm going to click here. All right, cool. We'll figure it out. So pie charts are very common. We're basically segmenting this pie by state and the associated revenue by state. Pie charts are commonly used in business setting to show distribution of a specific metric. In this case, it's a distribution of revenue. This actually may not be a good example. Let's take state out and let's do sales manager instead and show me pie chart. Okay, there we go. So let's take a look. So we've got our distribution of sales managers here. We got Katie, Jennifer, James, and Lawrence. What does this tell us? Supposedly it's supposed to tell us the distribution of revenue each sales manager brought in, but when you look at this, it isn't particularly useful, especially when you start getting into more granular cuts of data. This is pretty highly aggregated. It's only four different sales managers we're segmenting by. We've got roughly Katie making up 33% of sales. We've got Jennifer Barker making up about 16%, 17%, and that's pretty much equally distributed. It's clear that Katie's in the lead here. Whereas this actually is a passable pie chart. If you must use a pie chart, it's best to go ahead and label by sales manager. So I'm going to take the sales manager dimension and I'm going to drop it on the label shelf, and there we have it. This is showing us the distribution of sales by sales manager. Not super useful or pretty to look at. Alternatively, what you can use I'm going to go ahead and undo that label. Alternatively, what you can use in place of pie charts. Actually, let me back up. Let's look at if we wanted to bring in even more granular data than sales managers. So let's go ahead and bring in account executive. Click there. There we go. So this is a better use case to illustrate my point. This doesn't really tell us anything. All it says is basically more or less our account executive teams are bringing in roughly about the same amount of revenue. One thing that pops out after looking at this a little bit closer is Anish Patel is bringing in 2.1 million, which looks roughly about to be the highest amount of revenue, followed by probably Casey Gorman, bringing in 1.5. John McClane's about the same. So it's pretty evenly distributed. It's not super helpful to be able to see stack rank, who's our top performer, who's our bottom performer, etc. Instead of showing pie charts, what I usually recommend students and analysts do is change this over here in the top right in the Show Me palette into a stacked bar chart. So we click on that, and now let's go ahead and sort descending. It's usually a best practice to either sort your bar charts either by ascending or descending order. And here we go. We're able to see Anish is at the top, followed by Casey and John McClane, who are our top 3 reps, with Nicole coming in last with only $714,000 in revenue. Alternatively, we can swap the axes by clicking up here, and we can also add a label for revenue. So let's bring this in, and we have that. We have our revenue markings. I'm not a fan of labeling because in Tableau, if you hover, we get to see the underlying data. So I'm going to undo that. That's probably the most common misuse of data visualization I see in the field. So I'm going to go ahead and call this distribution of sales by rep. Let's go ahead and create another one. Now let's take a look at time series data and a common pitfall I find. So from when we first looked at our data, I know we need to change month into a date time data type. So I'm going to go ahead and convert that now. So right click on our pillbox, change data type to date, and I'm going to bring in month. So aggregating at the year level, we're going to disaggregate to the monthly level. We have hash marks for the entire year. There is no specific year. That's what 1900 reads. We can edit that out. Don't worry about that. And I'm going to go ahead and build a time series for revenue over the last year. This is something I see very frequently when you show a time series as a bar chart. Now, the reason why it's not a good practice to visualize data over time within a bar chart series is this is continuous data. We have consecutive months, January, February, March, April, etc., and we're showing the amount of revenue within each month. When you're looking at continuous data like this, your eye looks for anchor points. So January, okay, we had 1.2 million, and in February we went up to 1.283. So roughly a $30,000 increase month over month. This isn't as evident with a bar chart. What's a better best practice is to show this in a connected format with a simple line graph. This way, you're able to see how revenue is trending over a continuous time series. I'm going to go ahead and undo and go back to the bar chart. So this is a lot more evident in a line chart format instead of this bar chart. It's a lot more blocky. So let's go ahead and redo. Alternatively, what I see is when people want to segment time series data, they go ahead and they often color and segment your lines by some type of dimensional cut. In this case, we're looking at sales manager. We can look at vertical and see what that does too. Okay, so we have 3 different verticals, and it's pretty noisy. Same issue when you use what's called a stacked bar chart. This is what we're seeing here. We're not able to see how these specific verticals trend over time. Blue links back to the consumer vertical, and we really have to hover over each constituent segment to really be able to see the month over month change. Whereas if we use a segmented time series or a segmented line chart, we're able to ascertain the month over month change much more immediately and hone in on a specific vertical. One word of caution when segmenting a simple line chart like this is I would say you want to keep your segmentation down to 3 fields, so 3 to 4 fields, I'd say. So vertical, we've got consumer, retail, and travel. This is getting a little noisy, not so much because we're over-segmenting our data, but more so because of the volatility within month-over-month performance across each vertical. with the exception being travel, which seems to be a little bit more smooth than our other two verticals. So I'm going to go ahead and call this line chart. Next up, the last data visualization pitfall I find often is very similar to our second example with showing time series data, where we're pulling in geographic information and visualizing it from using a bar chart to show a distribution. Now, so let's go ahead and sort this by descending. Here we can see our top performing states as far as revenue is concerned, where we have Georgia in the lead, followed by Arizona and Tennessee. This isn't super helpful. And one added benefit of Tableau is Tableau is able to very easily build maps. One way we can do this is we can go to the Show Me palette and click on our map here. And we get a much more user-friendly view of a map distribution of sales at the state level. Darker blue corresponds to more revenue, lighter blue corresponds to less revenue. One case, let me undo this, one instance where you may want to show bar charts for geographic information is by doing a limit, where you limit the data that you're presenting to show a top or bottom 10, 5, or 3 states. So to do that, what I'm going to do is go to this filter shelf, and we're going to drop the state pillbox on filters and get this pop-up dialog, and we're going to navigate to top. I'm going to click there, and we're going to create the logic here for our top filter. So click on top field, top 10 states by revenue, by sum of revenue. We can modify this to whatever value we want. If we want to do 5, we can do that. That's 5. If we want to edit this to just show 10, we can do that. And this becomes more useful within a bar chart than it would within a map, because this is stack ranking our states from our top performing states by revenue. This is a quick video. Just wanted to share some common data visualization pitfalls and best practices to avoid in your data analyses. We're going to revisit this data set here in a future video, but hope this was useful. Thanks. Bye.